Hey everyone, it's Jonathan, and changes are coming. Some things have already changed, and others will continue to change slowly, but I've made a few pretty big ones so far, so I figured I'd better jump in here and let you know. If you're watching this on YouTube, the handle of my channel is no longer at iHeartMovies. It is now the same handle I use on most of my social media, at JonJNorth. If you're listening to this on the audio version, you'll see that the title is no longer iHeartMovies, or iHeart Animation Movies as it was called briefly. It's now just iHeart Animation. On the audio podcast, I will now only focus on animation. My other podcasts that spun out of my original podcast, Every Version Ever and the Disney Movie Marathon, have a much larger audience than my original podcast ever had, and I think that's partially because they have a specific focus, which my original podcast has also never had. Every Version Ever focuses only on adaptations of classic literature, and the Disney Movie Marathon focuses only on Disney movies and related media. The content on the main podcast has always been just whatever I wanted to talk about, and as an audio podcast, it's never really done that great. YouTube outperforms it in every way. So from now on, the podcast you'll find on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, etc., whatever else is out there, will just be iHeart Animation. However, on YouTube, the content is mostly going to stay the same, but I think I will try to curate things a little better. Despite this being my main channel, my main projects are still Every Version Ever and the Disney Movie Marathon. I plan out those recording schedules long in advance, and here I just kind of record whatever random thing I want whenever it works out, because I always share the other podcast episodes here as well. But I think going forward, I'm going to be a little bit more choosy as to what shows up on the main channel. I think some things, especially the more obscure stuff, is just going to stay exclusive to the other podcasts. I will definitely still share some of everything I do on all my shows. Every Version Ever started here as Wonderland Wednesday, and the Disney Movie Marathon began here as me trying to review the Disney canon from beginning to end. So all the episodes that would have gone on the main channel back in the day will still go on the main channel in the future. But I think going forward, podcasts that are like way deep into the niche of their main show, probably things like an episode on an obscure silent version of Rip Van Winkle filmed in 1897 that no one's ever heard of, that episode will probably just stay on Every Version Ever. Now, as you might have noticed, I have been slowly removing the iHeartMovies brand from everywhere. I started phasing it out at the end of last year, moving everything under the umbrella of JNorth Media. That might go away too, I haven't decided yet. The main podcast kept the iHeartMovies name, but I'm now finally changing that too. Like I said, it's already now fully iHeart Animation on all podcast platforms. But on YouTube, it's still going to be as random as ever, but under a new name, because I have been wanting a more personal brand identity here for a long time. I'm slightly conflicted about this, as I do like the general idea of iHeartMovies as a brand. I generally try to be a movie lover, not a hater, so it does fit. However, iHeartMovies shares a name with, or is pretty close to, a couple of big media corporations, and I've kind of wanted to get away from it for a while. Plus, iHeartMovies has never felt fully correct to me. I went with it because I already had the name iHeart Animation, and I figured I should just keep things on theme. And actually, it started as the iHeart Podcast because I wanted to use it to talk about a little of everything. But at some point, I just decided that iHeartMovies sounded better, and it was more on theme with iHeart Animation, so I went with iHeartMovies. But even after the podcast became iHeartMovies, I was never 100% in love with the title, and I've probably had the thought of changing it like once a year ever since. It's just one of those things where it's like, if it's not broke, why fix it? The name did kind of grow on me, and I've had too much else going on in real life to worry about it, so I didn't. But it's been really bugging me more and more lately, and in the past few months, my channel has actually been growing a lot faster than it ever has. Every Version Ever actually has as well, I think even faster than this one. But here, I was recently invited to join the YouTube Partner Program, putting me one step closer to monetization, and all these things speeding up this year has really made me consider the identity of this channel, or lack thereof, and I feel like, at this point, if I'm going to change the title, it's now or never. So, I think going forward, the new name of the podcast as a whole will be the JonCast. I've had a few contenders for a name in mind for a long time. I think this one might have been the longest I've had in mind, but of all the names I've come up with over the years, including this one, they've all been in use by other podcasts or companies or entities, and I've wanted something totally unique. Well, joke's on me, nothing's unique. But with getting more serious about changing the name, I went back and started looking again into all the other people using all the other names I've been thinking of. And while some are still kind of in use a little bit, none of them are very active, none of them do what I do. I think the most recent any of them had ever posted anything was last year, so I'm going for it. the JonCast. But either way, while the name is changing, the content you get will not be, unless you listen to the audio version, and then you won't be getting things like a review of Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow, but you will be getting an episode on obscure animated versions of Sleepy Hollow. And if you're on the audio version and you do want that Tim Burton episode, go subscribe to Every Version Ever, because I will be doing a whole series on Sleepy Hollow in October. And I'll probably share that episode on the main YouTube channel as well. Like I said, I will be trying to curate the main channel a little more, but I will still get a little of everything, especially retro content aimed at my demographic, which is like typical millennial nerds, I guess. So, like I said, you can now find the YouTube channel at John J. North, and the audio podcast at iHeart Animation. The video podcast on YouTube will now be going by the JonCast, but it's still the same show that iHeart Movies has always been. I'm even leaving the heart in the logo, because fundamentally, I will always heart movies. So, thanks for listening for all these years. I look forward to many more years of talking movies, TV, cartoons, literature, and whatever other random things sound interesting that week. And I'm excited for you all to join me and my friends. We'll see you soon when Jenna and I will be back with another brand new episode of Wonderland Wednesday. Thanks for listening.